Hey guys, so this is step 2 for topic 1. We're talking about the genetic code. So if you are in periods 2, 4, or 7, this video is required. If you are in periods 1, 6, or 8, this video is an optional way to get your genetic code notes. I'm going to be writing the notes here, but by all means, you could write it here. You could write it on Google Keep, Google Docs, separate sheet of paper, whatever works for you. Alright, so we are going to start talking about the genetic code. So the genetic code is simply a sequence of nucleotides. Now remember, a nucleotide has 3 parts. So a nucleotide has a sugar, it has a phosphate, and it has a nitrogenous base. So the little house is a sugar, the circle is the phosphate, and this little square, which isn't actually a real representation, but the square is a nitrogenous base. Now remember, there are actually 5 nitrogenous bases. That's adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. So adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, and uracil. Alright, so nucleotides, these 3 parts, these are simply the building blocks of nucleic acids. Wow, not blocking, building block of nucleic acid. And remember, my nucleic acids are DNA or RNA. Alright, so that's a little bit of background information. The genetic code is simply a sequence of nucleotides. This was a review of what a nucleotide is, and then what it means, being it's a building block of nucleic acids, which are DNA and RNA. Alright, all living things have a genetic code. Alright, they all have DNA, they all have RNA. Alright, otherwise they wouldn't be able to be considered living. So a review, I'm going to first review DNA. So this is DNA. So all living things have DNA. DNA, remember, looks like this. It has this double helical shape. It has a sugar phosphate backbone. That's this part, sugar phosphate backbone. And then it has our complementary base pairs in the center. Now, if we were to take, this is a very simple version of DNA. So if we were to actually blow this up, we would get this image right here. So I'm going to explain what this is. These little circles, again, they're phosphates. The little house thing is a sugar, and these little rectangles are the nitrogenous bases. So if I were to highlight one of these, this one would be a nucleotide. Now remember, my genetic code is simply a sequence of nucleotides. So if I'm looking here, the thing that determines my sequence is my nitrogenous base. So everything has a sugar and a phosphate. Alright, everything is going to have this sugar phosphate backbone. This is my sugar phosphate backbone. Everything is going to have nitrogenous bases, but the thing that's different is which nitrogenous bases there are. So remember, if we're talking about DNA, my pairs are always A to T, G to C. That's how they always pair. This is what's going to be different. Alright? Now my nucleotides are always bonded with hydrogen bonds. So you know that there's like this little space here that's filled by a hydrogen bond. That's just what loosely holds all of this together. Okay. So we all have this great genetic code. We all have this DNA, we all have this RNA, we all have the sugar, phosphate, nitrogenous bases, right? Because of this, we have this question now, like, why do we look different? If we all have this thing, why do we look different? Well, we all have these nucleotides. We all have nucleotides. But the order or sequence is different. Okay, order, sequence, these are our keywords. The order or sequence of our nucleotides are very different. So let me give you an example. We all have DNA. So again, here's my super loose drawing, right? If I take a portion of my DNA, just a segment of my DNA, I get a gene. All right, my gene, the way that we sort of write this is just a string of letters. Now remember, each letter, every single letter represents a nitrogenous base. So a letter equals nitrogenous base. The reason we only write the letter and not the sugar and the phosphate is because the letters or the nitrogenous bases is really what's determining my genetic code, how it's different from everybody else's. So remember, we're starting with my DNA, my gene, and then the way that we really see how we differ is when we start to transcribe it and make it into proteins. So remember, when we're transcribing from DNA to RNA, that means that I'm using the pairs A to U, T to A, G to C, C to G, G to C, and A to U. And if I divide my mRNA into codons, now I can translate it into amino acids. I would be using an mRNA codon chart for this. Alright, these are now my amino acids. Now when I string a bunch of amino acids together, I get protein. And when I actually express that protein, that becomes my trait or characteristic of basically how we look. So every single living thing has the genetic code, but it's the order of the letters or the order of our nitrogenous bases that determine how we're different, right? So like a mixing up of these letters could determine if I have brown hair versus blonde hair. It can determine if I have blue eyes versus brown eyes. It can determine how tall I am. It could determine what species am I. It could determine if I'm an antelope or a human. So what you're going to be doing here, this is going to be the next part in your checklist. You're going to be going over the structure of DNA, which is part of our notes. And then we're really going to get into the meat of genetically how similar are we, right? So human-wise, this blows my mind, but we're like about 96 to 99% similar to all humans, right? It's only like a fraction of us, like a fractional percent of us that's different in genetically. So when you're looking at this chart, you're going to be comparing all of these three letters. These are just different amino acids. You're going to be comparing humans to all of these different species, seeing based on their amino acid sequences that come from the genetic code, how similar really are we to other species. So please get through this. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and let me know. And have fun with the genetic code. It's very exciting.